Minefield Publishing, the place where you unleash your creative genius. Write the book you've always dreamed of. Tell that unique story of yours. Minefield Publishing is a place to be for both online and print publishing. Welcome to Minefield Publishing Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn live interview. Meet your host, Edentu Oroso, the author of the #1 Amazon bestseller, Titan Race.
Hello there. We are live once again on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. I'm your regular host, Edentu Oroso. This evening seems to be an exciting one. I have a very special guest with me is Alexander Emmanuel, an Air Force officer and the author of the Diary of a Boy Soldier. Also, is the author of Omo and Scarlet. His book Scarlet won the 2019 Bookhouse Prize for Fiction. His short stories and articles have been published in several journals, including the Summer Review Magazine UK. Alexander is passionate about writing and impacting lives. Ladies and gentlemen, join me as I welcome Alexander Emmanuel. You're welcome, Alexander.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Edentu. How are you today?
I'm doing great, and you?
I'm full of life. Good to see you.
We also have with us tonight or this evening the publisher of Scarlet and the other books that I just mentioned. She's Amara Chimeka. She's also here with us. Amara, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Edentu. Thank you. Nice meeting you. That's true.
My pleasure. Now, Mr. Alexander Emmanuel, you have a lot. It seems you have a lot going on for you. Against the backdrop of being a military personnel and Air Force officer, you've been able to put together books that have made quite an impact in recent times. Diary of a Boy Soldier, Omo, and Scarlet. How were you able to put all this together with all the tight schedules, your regimented lifestyle that you have as a military personnel?
Oh, thank you. Then too, I think this is one of the questions I've had over and over again, how I'm able to combine work and writing. I think writing, it's just a way of life. I don't try to separate the two. Because it is about me, it's about my mind, it's about my expressions, which is not restricted by time, it's not restricted by space or by what I do. It is in me. So it hasn't been a problem, because irrespective of what I do, I just try to create an interpretation. You know, some of my inspiration, of course, I even get them from where I work, where you're able to, you know, interface with different scenarios, where you're able to, you know, identify with people's needs, with people's peculiarities. From there, some of these avenues are even places where I get inspiration to write. So I don't see a separation, you know, between me and my art, based on what I do. So far, for me, it's just a way of life. It's an expression, and one way I do these things is just through writing. So I just find a balance, you know, between the two. So there's really no different time. I carry it along. So writing is part of me. So it's what I do irrespective of work schedule.
Okay, which of these books came first? Diary of a Boy Soldier, Omo, and Scarlet. Which of them came first?
Okay, I think my first book was Diary of a Boy Soldier. That was the first time I wrote the book. That was in 2005. It was published back then. Then I was just coming up as a writer, so there was need to retell the story. That was what I did almost about 13 years later. After 2005 that I published that one. I published it just at that time. I just wanted to scribble some of the experiences we went through at the military school using a fictitious character, Yorinde, at that time. But over the years, there was need for us to rewrite the story. So in terms of actual, publishing, the Diary of a Boy Soldier came first. But in recent times that I resumed active writing, Omo came first. Omo was in 2018, June, while the Diary of a Boy Soldier was in September. That's the reviewed version, September 2018, and Scarlet came last, which was released last year.
Okay, let's take a look at one of your book trailers.
From the sediments of Sun City, through the fiery Galadima forest, traversing the sand dunes and bastions of the Sahara, and the boorish waves of the Mediterranean, to the Piedmont region of modern-day Italy, Omo's story is that of courage and self-discovery.
Thumbs up there.
Wow, that was beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
That's Omo. So tell us about Omo. What's the inspiration? How did you get inspired to write Omo? What's the theme about?
Okay, see me smiling at the mention of Omo. Omo is a book that is very, very dear to me. It was a book, I think, that really brought me back into active writing. When I saw the need to address, certain topical issues around the world. It was a book I wrote with so much passion because, as I said, there were things that needed to be addressed. What spurred me into writing Omo was the need to address the issue of child trafficking, across Africa and across the world. While doing a study in 2017 thereabout, I think I came to realize that for every year, about I think girls between the ages of 12 and 19 were trafficked out of Nigeria, about 17,000 of them yearly. And I mean girls between 12 and 19 every year, And you find out that this kind of information are not usually available out there. They're always available, but these are not the things we pay attention to, that this very active, this very promising, class of people have been trafficked under very terrible circumstances. And we saw the need to tell this story to address some issues surrounding, gender-based violence as well. And also at that time, I remember it was the period that there was this rise of using young girls as suicide bombers, in the Northeast. So I tried to go into the minds, of these people to try to understand what they go through, what these young girls go through, those that go through human trafficking, the dehumanizing conditions. How come would a normal girl, young girl, take up that courage to blow up herself and all of that? So there was a need, for us to look into some of these realities, to be able to tell a story that the world can embrace and we can empathize, with this category of people. So it was a work that had me, doing lots of research, a work that had me, making lots of consultations and with a lot of people with statistics. But, as creative writers, we try to put all of this, into an expression, which is the story we try to tell. So it was an accumulation, of all of these needs that inspired the Omo story. So basically, if you will notice in the book, the title of the book itself was the name of the lead character in the novel, whose name is Omonigo, which the full name was, Omonigo, yeah, which means the value of a child cannot be quantified. So we try to achieve a lot of things from the titling, from the designs, from the themes, from everything. We paid attention to every detail to ensure that the message we're trying to, pass across is adequately projected. So for me, it was a beautiful story. I think it's a story that every parent, every young person should read, because there are lots of lessons to draw from them across parental, negligence, issues bordering on rape, issue bordering on, sexual exploitations, radicalization into violent extremism. You catch all of these things, through the stories as you journey with the major character, which is Omo. So it's a book very dear to me, and it has been doing well out there.
That's very interesting. Child trafficking, drug abuse, and all that. They are cankerworms that the society is trying to eradicate. And for you to have highlighted that in the book, that's a great feat. I give you kudos for that. Do you have the book
Thank
there?
you.
Do you have the book there? You just raise it for the viewers
Okay,
to
okay. I think Amara, where's Amara? You have a copy. Amara, wait for us. I'm not. Okay, Amara,
Amara,
can you
you
wave to us?
the book, Omo.
Okay, yeah, that's Omo.
Amara, do us a favor. Can you read a paragraph or two for us from Omo? By the way, that's the publisher, Amara Chimeka, from Purple Shells, right?
Yes, Purple Shells.
Okay. Amara, you're on. Read a paragraph or two for us.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go by what he just said. I'm going to read a paragraph from the chapter Health. Can you hear me?
Can you adjust your camera a little bit so that we can see your face properly? Okay.
Okay.
Better, right.
Okay, so I'm just going to take a part from the chapter titled Hell's Date. That's chapter 9. And I'm going to go by what he just said. It's about when Omo was in the camp, when she was held in camp by terrorists and was about to be used as a suicide bomber. The bodies of Omo and Hanatu were brought out of the truck and carried into one of the Ford Vectra cars parked along a bushy path. The drivers started their engines as soon as Abu joined the convoy, and they set off for another town. There, they were received by 2 bomb technicians who led the girls to a small room and made them sit on the floor. The younger bomb specialists applied a lucent ointment on their bodies and took off their blindfolds. Hanatu and Omo coughed copiously and sneezed before their eyes opened. They stared at each other dumbly, barely remembering who they were. After connecting more wires on their already wired bodies, Hanatu and Omo were shown how to use the device. They were to press and hold the button whenever they received signal from their guide. The girls nodded to show that they clearly understood what their mission was. The second handler led the girls back to a car and took off the plate number. Abu came out briefly to pass final instructions to the guide before they drove off.
Wow, that's from excerpts from Omo, which deals with
chapter 9.
Chapter 9, which deals with social vices such as child trafficking, drug abuse, and you name it. And that's the publisher that just read it, Purple Shells. She's the CEO of Purple Shells, Amara Chimeka. And I'm chatting with one and only Alexander Emmanuel, best-selling author, Diary of a Soldier Boy, Omo, and Scarlet. Now, let's go to Diary of a Soldier Boy. What's intrinsic about the book? What themes are you convey in it?
Okay. The Diary of a Boy Soldier is a story, inspired by my experience at the Nigerian Military School. The Nigerian Military School is like, it's a secondary school, runs a secondary school curriculum, but with military training. And this is a school where you have young boys from across the country go through, very tough military training from the ages of 10, where we're exposed to share military training, rifle drills, signals, whatever you can think of. This is a school a lot of great men in Nigerians attended. Talk of late Idiagbon, David Mark, a host of them that even Dibanj that a lot of the school has produced a lot of great people across the society. So there was need to tell a story because of a lot of things that happened there. Through a child's eye, there was a way we saw the world. We always saw the world to be fast moving. We always saw the world to be a place that require all the discipline that you need to excel with, So we saw things differently. So there was need for us to tell a story that cuts across different generations, of those who attended that school. There's been no any book before then. So wanted to capture, the story of an average boy soldier, which is the name of the trainees of the Nigerian military school. We call them boy soldiers. At the completion of the 6 years, they are enlisted into the army. At about 16, 17, these guys are in the army. So wanted to capture those experiences and also to use the book as a tool, as an ethical compass, to guide those who are coming, to assist posterity to, find their path rightly when they go there. So the book talks about a young man, Ayorinde, who was the major character, how he came from a very lowly background, how he was opportune. He was in Lagos then. He didn't know much about the military school, but somehow he just saw a particular guy one day fully adorned in military regalia, and that inspired him. He was curious to know about, whatever it took to be in that school. So somehow he found his way to the military school, but a very intelligent young man, but along the line, because of the whole military activities, he lost focus. And in losing focus, he failed his final exams, which was what plunged him to the point of sharing his story. So the Diary of a Boy Soldier is actually Ayorinde telling his story for other people, for posterity to learn from, such that they can always understand where they are coming from and be able to make right decisions for life. It also punctures, areas around child development, where parents should to see and to find entry points, in guiding their children rightly towards achieving their goals. So the Diary of a Boy Soldier has a lot of things that everyone should read and learn a lesson from. Why you should pay attention to every phase of your child's life. When you see changes, the need, for you to intervene, and making the right interventions for the right, issues. So Diary Boy Soldier, irrespective of the setting, being a military setting, it tells a story that affects all of us. A story that affects the kind of choices we make, what motivate, the things that motivate us, and how we're able to manage crisis. Do we allow crisis consume us, or we rise above them to become better people? So basically, that's what the Diary of a Boy Soldier captures.
I like a phrase you used. You said ethical compass.
Yeah, it's an ethical compass. Yes, it is. It is.
That's a good one there. Now the big one. What is now option for firm and all that. Before we go into Scarlet, take a look.
Scarlet by Alexander Emmanuel, Chapter 2, Where the River Split, Virgin Land, 300 years before the first sign.
Again, the wind swirled and gusted, and there were fresh motors of thunder from the sky. Rain lashed down, bled ferociously, and defaced the mountains and adobe walls of their last luster, while the faltering lights revealed the burnished faces of virgins and the still bodies of breathless children. The leftover oxygen in the air was elusive. A gust of bulky air sprawled from the west with the damp and choking smell of rain, and for a moment, stillness fell over the streets. After the silence came a low crackle of thunder that rolled atop the rooftops of the few houses still standing and whispered fresh death threats into the ears of those who were still alive after the 10-hour siege on the realms. The wind whistled after the last drizzle of rain splashed, lending tune to the bereaved who sang dirges for their loved ones. The wicked blossom and the good wallow in kind deeds. Villains take our diamonds and the indigent crave for crumbs of sand. We are wounded by the swords of the mighty, yet they heal with the tears of the weak. For weeks, months, and years, our young are cut off from the glory of greatness. Even in Gaia has turned his face towards our enemies.
Whoa, that's the stuff of me.
Yeah, thank you for the video.
How did the Scarlet magic happen? The book being a bestseller and all that. How did the magic happen?
Scarlet, Scarlet is quite a heavy one. Scarlet is one book that pushed my creativity to its limit, I must confess, you know. It was outside the box of my regular writing, you know, style, and everything that had to do with my writing career so far. Scarlet was out of the box. That was because I had to explore lots of elements, you know, creative elements to put together the thoughts I have concerning the book. As you rightly mentioned in one of your the promotions before this, you mentioned Scarlet as an African cosmology, which is basically the clothing, you know, around the whole story. Scarlet tries to project. Scarlet would address issues around politics in Africa. On the flip side, it will also address, you know, the understanding of the world system, of the interactions between the spiritual and the physical, and why some things that happen the way they are, and why we should be able to, you know, make the appropriate deductions that can make us succeed as a society, as an individual, and as a system. You know, so these are some of the critical things, you know, Scarlet tries to achieve. The story began with, you know, in the celestial realm where there were gods, what we call gods, wraiths, where they were taking certain decisions on the affairs of men. And at the end of the day, it was supposed to be a parallel, you know, realm. As you know, the celestial and the physical, that was how I was supposed to operate. The physical never knew that the celestial were controlling their activities. All what they were doing, they were all working towards a day of Scarlet. That day of Scarlet was the day that the entire creation, both animals, living and non-living things, spirits and humans, were waiting for that redemption. The redemption, you know, that will make every desire of man or nature, you know, come to fruition. You know, just imagine every day we wake up, we struggle, we try to make things work for ourselves. You try this hard, you fall. The day of Scarlet was supposed to be a day that there will be perfection in all things, which we all know it's never achievable in its real sense, except for maybe people talk about rapture and other things. But this day of Scarlet was what everyone was waiting for. Now, in waiting for this, there were lots of manipulations in these realms that I mentioned. How men, you know, Scarlet brought about issues of, will I say, minority politics in Africa, where people want to dominate, the majority want to dominate, you know, the minorities. It brought about politics of succession, where people want to remain, you know, in power for life in this story. So while we were telling all this story, all these things, you know, came to play. So it's a story that you will liken with great stories like the Avengers, Odyssey, and the rest, you know. So I think that was even the attraction that that made the Canadian company to approach us, because we were telling something different that had very rich, you know, themes, and we're telling it using the African setting. We're using and projecting African culture in a way that the world has not seen. If you remember when this movie came out, Black Panther, Wakanda, it had lots of, effect because of the Africanness of that story. It projected the richness of our culture, the richness of our environment, and the abilities that Africans can, project to the world as, a significant part of the affairs of humanity. That was what the story projected. So Scarlet is even beyond this. And that was what brought this attention, because we brought even issue of gender-based violence. If you study all my books, somehow you will find the touch of these issues, because these are today's reality. In our politics today, you see how when you talk of the affirmative action, you see representation of women in relation to men. It's never, the same. So we try to project some of these things, how one of the lead characters, Denka, who was due to lead, was denied that privilege, because she was a woman. So some of these things, came into the fore to pass some of these messages. At the end of the story, there was something that happened. Excuse me. At the end of the story, there was something that happened, and that day of Scarlet they were all waiting for was actually seen, but they didn't understand that was the day, because the day wouldn't have come in the way they had expected it. So it was a day that men could plant and it germinates on that day. It was a day that a man and a woman could meet and they have complete conception and delivery within that day. So we try to push everything, the combination of the stories, into all of this, that these things are achievable, the day that world peace can be achieved. So all of this were projected in some of this, or in some of these plots that the story was told along. So at the end too, we had the entire world coming together to form a band, everybody holding their hands, and that was the day that all the fields became white. So there are a lot of elements that were brought into Scarlet that made it an attraction, that a lot of stories can be told from. There were stories of, conquests, this imperialism, of how a particular king, who after he became king, saw the need for him, to annex other places. You will see a lot of militarization in the book. You'll see how, the guy tried to suppress every other voices, even though they were supposed to be under a particular district, until the guy became so powerful, like the stories of Hitler, that that the supreme being, which is called Ngai, had to intervene in the affairs of men, because he was even envious of the guy's power at a time. You understand? He was even envious because of the kind of, power and authority the guy was pulling at that time. It was even, so that was the time that there was coincidence between the celestial and the physical. You understand? All at from the beginning, the stories were told in parallel, but this was where the intersection came, at the point that the supreme being himself wanted to intervene. And of course, there's always the villain. The villain too never wanted that day of Scarlet to materialize in the way the world expected. He wanted it his own way. So there's a whole lot of elements that were brought to fore in Scarlet that made it an attraction. And I can boldly say that was one of the reasons why we were approached. And it was a long process, but it's been so far so good.
There's this misconceptions that Africans are not good at fantasy. I mean, writing fantasy and all that. Do you ascribe to that thinking based on your achievements so far? I'm also a fantasy writer, so I just want your own perspective on this.
Okay, yeah. When you talk about it's two things. When you talk about fantasy, all the elements of fantasy are mostly embedded in our African cosmology. They are easy to find. They are easy to draw strength from to tell stories. Except you're saying Africans are not good writers. That is which is totally wrong. You understand? So I think most people expect us to tell our stories the way they are used to, the way they are being told, from the Western world. But no, We must tell our stories as it affects us. All we need to do is to hone our craft, rightly, to be able to project this, because there are lots of things we need to tell our stories about. When you talk of Afrofuturism, see Nady, what she's doing. We're doing great out there. You understand? Look at this girl, what's her name? Tommy. What's the title of the book again? Moon and Blood and Moon or something. So you see, they are doing very well because, and if you check their stories are built around, African traditions. They are built around folklores. They are built around, the stories that emanate from this part of the world. So if you check these people already, they are doing so well out there. That's to tell you that we have a rich platform, as Nigerians, as Africans, to be able to explore fantasy. I've done it, and I can assure you it's something we can. I think probably because it's a growing genre around here, maybe that's why people are yet to really embrace it. But I tell you, we have all the potentials, we have all the resources, we have all the materials to draw inspiration from, to be able to tell our stories the best way that we can. So I do not subscribe to that thought, because I have tried it and it's doing very well. And I can assure you that for Scarlet, we have gotten too many blessings. We have from that book, and we are planning in the year to come. Of course, this year is 1 year down, so a lot of things didn't happen this year. So, but 2021, it was something I was discussing with my publisher not too long ago, for us to consolidate on what we already have, to make global impact, which we have started already. So I tell you, it is a place that is yet to be. It's an untapped genre that we can take advantage of.
Yes, I just asked that to clarify certain issues for those who are watching us. I'm also my title race, which became an #1 Amazon bestseller, is science fiction fantasy. Though it's not necessarily rooted in African cosmology, but it's all embracing all the elements that you talked about. There are great writers like Nnedi Okorafor and others who are making us proud in the genre. So it's good to go. Now, before I go to the next question, let's I'm going to take something from you again, one of your trailers. I'm chatting with best-selling author Alexander Emmanuel, who is an Air Force officer and a great writer who is making impact. His book, Scarlet, has been optioned for film already. And he's also the author of Diary of a Boy Soldier and Armor. Now, here's a book trailer that
two worlds of wraiths in Kirianga and mortals under the sky, and two arch enemies, Ngai and Gituku, waiting for one day, the day of Scarlet, when evil will finally be destroyed. And while they waited from century to century, none of them knew they were acting a script, a masterpiece of one of the actors. But until a woman drinks from the confluence of two rivers that do not mix, the day of Scarlet will not come.
Until the day of Scarlet, what will not come? Completely.
until a woman drinks from the confluence of two rivers that do not mix, the day of Scarlet will not come.
Beautiful lines, beautiful.
Until a woman drinks, yeah.
Let me go to Amara. Hello, Amara. Hello, Amara.
Hello.
You are the publisher of all these great books. Scarlet, especially, you made a lot of money. How do you feel? I'm sure you're proud of yourself to have handled this right.
I didn't get that. Sorry.
I said, as the publisher of Scarlet and the other books that are making huge waves around the world, you must be a proud publisher. How do you feel?
Well, it feels good to be making impact. Yeah, not proud, but it feels like you're living purpose with you're living with purpose. You're doing something that's beyond you and not just for yourself. But yeah, I hope that answers.
So how did the optioning thing, how did it come about?
Like he already said, we were contacted. Um, they heard about the book. They saw some of, they saw some excerpts. They read some parts, and they got very interested, and they said they needed to speak with our author, speak with us, and the rest is history. We're currently working on um, the other back end processes, scripting, and all to make sure that what we have is an actual representation of the author's thoughts, yeah, and that it's not hampered in any way.
Okay, in essence, the screenplay is already ready, and you're just waiting for nitty-gritty to fall in place, right?
Yeah, we're still working on all the processes. Of course, even if you create, if you have a draft of the script, you still have to, do a lot of reviews. If you've read Scarlet, you know that the book is very deep and it's very complex. So you really have to take your time with regards to anything that you're doing. But work is in progress.
Okay, let's take a look at the book. We've seen the book trailer, we've seen the excerpt, the chapter 2 excerpt. Let's take a look at the physical copy of the book for those who are watching.
So, got Scarlet. That's Scarlet.
Okay, very very beautiful cover too.
Yeah, thank you.
Read a line or two for us. Not the excerpt, not the one we saw earlier. Something different.
Okay, sure. Why not? Okay, I will be reading from. Let me see. What's this chapter? Okay, I'll be reading from chapter 10. That's titled "Balm of Forever." So at this particular time, the king, the overambitious king that I spoke about, was already expanding, his influence across the realms. There were 9 realms, and he wanted to assert himself as the supreme king. So that was what led to this. At this point, he was trying to, carry out a very strategic mission to dominate one of the kingdoms within that realm. So I'll read from there. At a few minutes past midnight, Iron Army set out in 7 regiments. The 3 fearless Atamaki, who led the 3 frontal regiments, formed the spearhead, while the other 4 commanded the tails. They were led by the riders who rode ahead of them on their horses. Their advance slowed in the morning, and by noon, several of them were yet to recover. Drenched inside their own sweats, it dawned on them that they needed more than just skill to survive. Their hastily donned iron helmets, breastplates, and shin guards slowed their advance and may have added to their discomfort. They arrived at the plains that would lead them to the forest near Ambura on the evening of the 2nd day, and harbored there to wait for the reports of the 11 spies who snuck into the fringes of Ambura and will return in the wee hours of the morning with information that will assist the Atamaki plan how best to attack. Based on the reports, orders were given. 2 regiments will go as decoy, while the other fighters will split into 2. 1 regiment will stay fast as backup, while the other 4 would launch into the city from the north. At dawn, the first 2 regiments set out as planned, but were ambushed by the vigilant Ambura fighters moments into their advance. While the Amburas were celebrating their victory, 4 regiments of Iron Army, 2 from either flank, struck their base, and Iron Army pursued those who survived into the heart of the city. The Angui fighters who were on their way to recover the Ambura fighters were cut off by the backup regiment of Iron Army. The 4th Regiment had broken through Dragon Mount and found their way past the 7 gates, the last gate leading to the tunnel where the Balm of Forever was hidden, when a new batch of angry reinforcement arrived to support the fighters. 3/4 of the alliance formed a ring around the tunnel and held their shields to their breasts while hoisting their spears and swords over the top of the shields and awaiting the Iron Army who were advancing towards them. The remaining 1/4 lunged at the Iron Army to delay their advance, but were defeated and run over, while the Iron Army, now reorganized, moved in a tactical sequence, teetered shoulder to shoulder, and tacked into columns of 3 blocks. They paced warily as they advanced under the orders of their central commander, stalking with their spears in one hand and shields in the other, eyeball to eyeball, through the seals of their metal helmets. Either side of the divide monitored with suspicion and the eagerness to strike or defend. Each step taken by the Iron Army were taken with acute staidness and stark silence. The sound of anxiety, smell of fear, and the anxiety of uncertainty became intense. The Allied fighters stiffened their grip on their shield and adjusted the gaiety of their pose as a collision became imminent. Within this lull, courage, like deflated balloons, escaped through the sweaty palms of the fighters. Gutari Kira, the commander of the 4th Regiment of the Iron Army, prompted his men to attack as soon as they approached the last meters of the wall created by the Allied fighters. Hold fast, one of the commanders of the Alliance charged his men, and they stomped their foot to the ground with readiness for impact. Rita Kinyete, Moromage, voices from both sides boomed as each charged their men to either engage or hold fast, depending on who was attacking or defending. Iron Army whammed into the defense of the Alliance, and more body parts flew about as the confrontation extended. They pressed harder, exerting fiercer pressure on the Allied fighters' position with the intent to dislodge them, but the Alliance resisted and strengthened their defense. While the fight continued, 3 fighters from the Iron Army slid into a 30-foot deep well. At the bottom of the chasm, leading into a bunker, was a metal door with rusted latches held by 2 fabricated iron spring barbs. The locks gave way after the 5th strike, and one of the fighters entered inside and returned with an old rusted cuboid metallic chest where the Balm of Forever was kept. Muramagi, the one-eyed Angwe commander, repeated when a flood of new Iron Army horsemen rammed through the 7 gates for a rescue mission. The fight resumed with a fresh gusto as both groups prepared for a final showdown, and the Alliance, bearing in mind that the ointment in the hands of Anote meant disaster to the realms, fought to the last until they were overwhelmed at the early hours of morning the following day. Thank you.
Lovely, lovely. I like your choice of one good storytelling is the choice of words, and I think that is displayed beautifully well in this excerpt that you read. That's chapter 10, I guess.
Yes, chapter 10, Balm of Forever.
Okay. Viewers out there, I'm chatting with best-selling author Alexander Emmanuel, who has just read an excerpt from his fantasy Scarlet. We'll be right back after this timeout.
Minefield Publishing, the place where you unleash your creative genius. Write the book you've always dreamed of. Tell that unique story of yours. Minefield Publishing is a place to be for both online and print publishing. Welcome to Minefield Publishing Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn live interview. Meet your host, Adentu Oroso, the author of the #1 Amazon bestseller, Titan Race.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Yes, that was the lovely one from Scarlet there. Let me ask you a personal question. What are your areas of relative strength as a writer?
As a writer, I would say one, the use of words and the ability to put my thoughts on paper using, the everyday contacts that I have, the everyday experiences that I have to be able to describe. I think my strength, my strength of description, it's one skill that I know that's working for me very well. I'm able to pull words together by using just normal everyday elements to be able to create metaphors from the simple things we can relate with while still making the accurate effects that we try to do with that. Then another thing is discipline. I'm able to, I think when I was writing Omo, for example, I dedicated 10 hours every day to write for 2 years, every day, and I mean every day for 2 years. So that's why I tell you, Omo was very dear to me. It was a time of learning for me. Whenever I close, I just take out time. So for 10 hours, I was able to establish that rule for myself. So somehow I am able to culture. That's why when people ask how I combine work and this, I do it off work period, between work period, whenever I have the time to. But once it's outside work period, I spend most of my time writing. So basically for me, it's about a goal, it's about pursuing it and putting all that I have into achieving it. So in terms of creative writing, I think one of my greatest strengths is my power of description.
Okay. The next question I want to ask is, to the best of your understanding, what are the essentials of a good story?
Okay, I think the essentials should be that a story should lead you, as the reader at first contact. The story should lead you. I wouldn't like a situation where, when I started writing I had that challenge where you want to impose your thoughts, on the reader. I expect that the reader should be able to, flow along, make decisions for themselves, make the interpretation for themselves without the author asserting, his personality or on the plot. So I think it's about direction of the plot that for me, it's one of the essentials of the good writing.
Okay. Has there ever been a time that you felt like giving up on your writing career? Because essentially, writing is more a labor of love in this part of the world. Has it been worthwhile financially?
Yes, it has been. It has been very well, and to the glory of God, I've been able to do a whole lot material achievements through writing. Yes, I've been able to do that. As you are aware, my book Omo, which was released in 2018, sold 10,000 copies in 1 day. In 1 day, we achieved selling of 10,000 copies, a feat that I'm sure it's a rare one around this part of the world. So it's about strategy. Yeah. It's about it's
the world have achieved that feat. So it's a rare one.
So thank you. So this was able to be achieved by the strategies we put in place. One that was mostly driven by the passion that I had for that work. Now, talking about what inspires me, I think for writing, first for me, it's the passion, it's the love for it. And that is why at every point in my life, I am writing. I'm writing something. It's either I'm writing a story or I'm actually doing maybe a research work or maybe an official work that has to do with writing. So for me, writing has become a part of my life to the extent that if I am not writing, it is like I am psychologically drained. I don't find that connection with life. That's how terrible it has become. That's why when you ask me how do I manage work, for me, I don't think there's a separation. It is about what it is. I carry the writing, so it is part of me. You understand? So the inspiration, it's about being able to express my thoughts on paper that I read, that I'm satisfied and and I find fulfillment in them. That's number one. Then number two, of course, we want to see the reward of our labor. But I always say this because we need to place the horse rightly before the cart, you know. So first is the passion. Then afterwards, of course, we want rewards that will be able to motivate you. When you see those things, it motivates you to do more, even to go outside, you know, your comfort zone, to want to do more, you know, and all of that. So we have put strategies, as Amara mentioned earlier. She's been an amazing person, and what we did when we came on board, we brought a lot of disruptions, you know, from the normal way the book industry works around Nigeria. We did a good research, and that's how we've been able to achieve these feats, you know, at a time. So a lot of strategy, which I cannot, say all of them here. So, but it had to come with a lot of work, and to God be the glory. Really, for me, it's been a rewarding journey. It has been a fulfilling one, and I believe, and that is some of the things we try to do, to see how other authors can come into this light, to be able to realize their dreams through their passion, through their creativity, and other means. Let me just add to this. What you're doing now, it's one of the strategies that are very effective. You understand? You are celebrating African writers through your platform. You are projecting Africa to the world. And there's something you're doing to yourself by doing that, by doing this. You understand? The lesser is always in the greater. You know, as you're bringing us on board, as we expand, you will expand in you. So already these are collaborations that will also project your capabilities, that can attract, you know, people who want to, you know, partner with you, people want to invest in you. And tomorrow, someone watching us today can say, oh, Edentu, how do we partner? I could also tell you, Edentu, how can we partner in terms of writing, in terms of marketing, in terms of promoting African literature? So it's actually a venue that we can do more. So, but a lot of writers have a lazy mind towards, you know, making impact. So that must be the first thing that will drive you, making impact. If that drives you, other things will come. You may not make it at once, but the results, precept upon precept, is just a matter of time. You will get there. So thank you very much for giving me this platform. Yes.
By this is streamed live on Facebook, on YouTube, and LinkedIn, and very soon it's going to be on Twitter and other platforms. So it's going to be awesome for African writers. Wherever you're watching this around the world, this is a great opportunity for you to showcase what you have. We have to tell our stories, our way, for the world to accept us the way we are. Now, the next question.
Our way. I like that, yeah.
What's your driving force as a writer?
My what?
Your driving force as a writer.
My driving force as a writer. How would I classify driving force? Is there really a driving force? I think for me, it's about being able to convey a message. I believe every story should have elements of that can impact, you know, the society, impact people, and all of that. And for me, achieving that, it's something that motivates me to write. It's something that I just want to get this thing out there, you know, for people to be able to draw strength from. I want to push this material out there, let people learn one or two things. It can change lives. So that picture that I have about my material being able to affect lives is my driving force, and it makes me to want to do more.
Okay, we have about 7 minutes more, or 6 minutes. So I'm going to be very brief about the next couple of questions. The next one is, which Nigerian writer or which Nigerian writers you hold there in your heart, and why?
Okay, Nigerian writer. Yeah, that's a difficult one because they're all scattered here and there. I think I like Ben Okri a lot. I like Ben Okri. That's because there are elements in his writing that synchronizes with mine. And because of that, I can easily relate with his work and his expressions. That's for him. Then I have an amazing an amazing writer who is yet to be at the limelight, but already making progress, Abubakar Sidi Umar. You know Umar Abubakar Sidi, right? The poet of dust, the poet of sand. Yeah, he's a poet and is a a prose writer. I see him as one of the best in Africa with just a matter of time, you know. And of course, you are one author who inspire me with your work, delving into fantasy and with the whole world you're able to create. In its Titan race, you created a world that has a world that exists as though it exists in reality, you know, a world that you have been able to put characters that are able to mingle with that reality we can relate with. So for me, it's not the regular names out there. I mentioned Abubakar Sidi, I mentioned Ben, and your work, and a couple of authors that are coming up around here. There are some other great Nigerian writers that are doing very well, but it's just that it doesn't align with my own disposition when it comes to rating great authors. They are doing well, of course, yes.
A quick one. If you have the power to change the publishing industry in Nigeria, what would you do differently?
I think I would work on building capacity for publishers. That's the first thing. I think the major challenge in Nigeria, the publishers have limited capability in terms of funds and strategy and training. You know, I think for me, that would be the first thing I would do, because if that is gotten rightly, the issue of marketing will be dealt with. We'll have much writers that would have less stress going through what they are going this day, and it will also churn out the best stories out there that we can always reach out to, we can always access. So I think for me, the first thing is to build capacity for publishers.
Lastly, you must have learned some hard lessons as a writer getting to this point. What are these, and how can budding writers avoid them?
I think a major challenge earlier was perception, how I feel reviews, negative reviews, you know, then where negative reviews, because you do not align with a particular writer's, you know, kind of writing, they want to throw your work off the shelf, you know. But this was something I think I dealt with it barely 6 months I was into writing, because I got to understand that creativity is fluid, and creativity, it's about the mind of the creator. You get it? All you need to do as a creative is for you to start from somewhere, no matter how haphazard it is, but keep building, you know, on your creativity. And as long as you, this is a message to young writers, and as much as they keep improving, I do not say do a bad work out there. Start where you are, even though you start bad, but don't stay there. Keep making progress, do more research, ask questions, you know, and keep improving on your art. Don't allow your first work, or don't allow anybody, you know, hold you down. Because these were some of the experiences I had earlier, and at the time you were like, oh, do I really need to go into this? But of course, I was able to redefine my, excuse me, I was able to redefine, you know, what my motivation should be. And when I got that right, I was able to define that rightly. Everything else became, so my motivation is not subjective. My motivation is what the fulfillment I find in doing what I am doing. And I already know what those are. You get it? So the best I do is that if you check my progress, my first work, my second work certainly is better than my first, in terms of, you know, when you want to check literary elements and then to assess a writer's progress in his work, you will see that development. So every writer, budding writers, should never give up. They should never be deterred as a result of one person's review. Your work will speak to the right audience, and you'll make the right impact you want to make in a matter of time.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel, Alexander Emmanuel, and your publisher, Amara Chimeka. It has been a wonderful 1 hour of brainstorming with you over your books, That of a Boy Child, of a Boy Soldier, Omo, Scarlet. I wish you the very best. Whenever you have a new project, please feel free to tap me up. I'm willing to give you the same platform to express yourself. Umar, thank you for
Thank you very much. Thank
doing,
you.
you're doing a wonderful job. Keep it up.
Thank you so
And to
much. Thank you.
my friend Alex,
Thank you so
cheers.
much. Thank you, Edentu. I'm so grateful, and it was a worthy time. I can tell you, really, really engaging because I learned a lot, along the line. Please do not hesitate to reach us where there is need for maybe further clarifications and on how to get our books. We remain Purple Shelves. Our handles are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Amara, where again? What's our website? www.purplechefs.com, right? Okay,
Yeah.
yes. So you can reach out to get any information you need on how to get our books. We do something very simple. Wherever you are, we make our book accessible to you, even though you are in the moon. So just reach out to us. You can access us through these platforms. Thank you so much, Edentu, and do have a
Thank
great day.
you. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right.
Wow, it has been an interesting 1 hour of
Thank
tete-a-tete
you.
with friend and brother Alexander Emmanuel and his publisher Amara Chimeka. I hope to be back soonest with some beautiful stories about authors, Nigerian authors, authors around the world who are doing very well. Until then, stay blessed and keep a date with me. Thank you.
Mindfield Publishing, the place where you unleash your creative genius. Write the book you've always dreamed of. Tell that unique story of yours. Mindfield Publishing is a place to be for both online and print publishing. Welcome to Mindfield Publishing Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn live interview. Meet your host, Edentu Oroso, the author of the #1 Amazon bestseller, Titan Race.
Bye.